Hi guys, and today's review is all about the Hornby B17, and this one is in the early emblem with the Brunswick green livery with orange, black and orange lining, and this is number 61665 Leicester City. The product code for this is R3523. Got this from Kerno Model Centre on their bargain page for £90, which currently seems really cheap. So we're getting to see if it's worth the money or not. So here it goes, and let's see if it's worth the money, shall we? Starting off at the detail bag, you do get quite a lot in this detail bag to add, which you get the steps, you get the brake rigging for the tender and the locomotive. You also get the chain link and hook for the back of the tender. You also get a coupling for the front as well. There's some other stuff, there's some piping as well, some drain cocks in bronze or copper, depending on your preference. Quite long they are there as well. Like I said, there's a few other bits of piping dotted around that I'm unsure what they are. As we move on to the front of the locomotive, this being a modern day locomotive, it does have metal sprung buffers and they are round. In my opinion, it's a pointless touch in double O, but that's just my opinion. Also on the buffer beam, we do have it in red. The housing is in red as well, with a few rivets on the buffer beam and housing. We do have a hook and chain links already applied from Hornby. These are whole there for detail as well. And then again, we have the class of the locomotive, or the classification of this locomotive, should I say. Moving on down, we do have the N&M pocket for the coupler, and we also have some irons to knock stuff off the tracks. As we move on up, we do have at least 3 lamp irons separately applied along the bottom. We also have 2 small handrails, one at either side as well. They are metal, and we also have a cylinder, I think, in the centre too. Moving on up to the smoke box door, we do have a shed code, and if I got this correct, the shed code for this fine locomotive is Colchester, and it's 30E. It's BR Eastern region, I believe. And the number of this locomotive further up is 61665, and I believe it's Leicester City. Being a B17, it's a football locomotive. And we also have a dart in the centre, which is separately applied as well. Then we have a handrail and a lamp iron at the top, and then we also have the chimney too. And you also can see the steam pipes as well. As we move on to the side of the locomotive, as you probably guessed by now, both sides, I was actually saying, apart from this side, has some different piping, and it has the reverser. The reversing rod is there, it is metal and it is shiny. You just see it behind the nameplate. Speaking of the nameplate itself is Leicester City, and it's in the traditional B17 style football nameplate with the football in the centre with the team's colours round, and the name of the team is in gold with a black writing in the background, which looks fantastic. Very nice touch there. The wheel configuration for this locomotive is a 460, and I believe it's the only one Gracely did it in his lifetime. All the workings of the motion is in silver metal, and it looks fantastic when it's going around. The cylinders themselves do not have any lining or anything on it. There is some lining on the running board too. I believe all the axle covers are covered in black as well, which looks great. The motor in this locomotive is a 5-pole screw round motor, and it is DC ready, and it takes an 8-pin. Delivery for this locomotive is in BR Brunswick green with lining of orange, black and orange on the boiler bands. So are the steam pipes as well, very nicely picked out. So even on the splashes, the lining and the livery. And we have a builder's plate there as well on the front splasher. Moving on to the cab side. The cab side itself is in the same livery as the boiler, which is Brunswick green with orange, black and orange lining. We have the number of the locomotive, which is crisply applied. We also have 2 steps, and we have the route availability and some steps going up to the cab. And we have glazing as well with some sort of shield to protect the crew members. And then we have a handle as well. As we move on to the part most people look forward to in a steam locomotive review, and that is the cab detail. First, I must stress that this is a totally different retool to the railroad version that's out there. The railroad version stems from the 70s, and it's all moulded. This one here is all new. It's highly detailed, everything's picked out, nothing's moulded as such compared to the railroad one. The dials have dials on in the background, it's nice. We also have the regulator picked out in silver. Piping is all picked out in gold or chrome, whatever it should be. I believe the water gauge has water in it as well. And I believe there's a seat or 2 in there. There is also some glazing as well, which is flush. Moving on to the front of the tender. The front of the tender, like I said before, is different to the railroad one. Railway one is all moulded, as you can tell it stems from the 70s like I said, but this one is different. We have two handles which are picked out in red. I believe there's a buffer or two as well at the front of the tender, and we also have some cupboards, and we have a chute with coal in it as well. It's very much detailed. I quite like it. As we move on to the side of the tender, both sides of the tender are exactly the same to me. We do have some steps as well at either side of the tender. We also have the livery of the tender, which is Brunswick green with lining around it, which is orange, black and orange. We have a crest in the middle, which is BR early, I think it's era 4, crisply applied, if I might add that. We also have some lining on the chassis of the tender. All the actual boxes and springs are all moulded, but that's the way it is. It doesn't look too bad to me. And all the wheels are metal as well. We have a handrail as well at either side of the tender too. As we move to the back of the tender is much like the front of the locomotive. It does have metal round sprung buffers. We also have the coupling already applied here, but we don't have the hook and chain links which are in the bag. There is also a hole for some other details on the buffer beam as well. The buffer beam and housing is in red with a few rivets on the buffer beam housing. As we move on up, it looks like there's at least 4 or 3 lamp irons there. These some handrails as well at the side and in the middle, and we have a step as well. We also have a cylinder as well on top of the tender. As we do an aerial view on top of the tender now, starting in the usual places, we do have a water filler cap. We also have a cylinder next to it as well. There's a few rivets around the water filler cap. There also is some hooks for tarpauling or chain to hook to. They are there, they are moulded, and then we have a dome thing in the centre with some sort of wall. Moving in a little bit more, we come to the coal load. The coal load itself isn't too bad. I do believe it is removable. When a touch it mine does move, so I guess it is removable. We also have some hooks there as well, I think for the fireman tools. And then you can also see the toolboxes as well. As we do an aerial view on top of the locomotive now, starting in the usual places, which is the cab roof. The cab roof does have a vent that does move, which is a nice touch, but a little bit pointless, but it's there. It's a nice touch. And we also have a few rivets as well. The rain ducket on this is in black. Then the other side is in Brunswick green. That's how Hornby have done it. It looks quite nice. The whistle and safety valves. The whistle is plastic and the safety valves are metal. I don't know why manufacturers do that, but that's the way it is. And there's a few washout plugs as well dotted around there too. As we move along to the boiler, I just want to point out one thing here with the boiler. The boiler does have a noticeable seam line down the centre of the boiler. I don't know if that's correct for the locomotive or what. But the livery, like I said on this, is Brunswick green with orange, black and orange lining on the boiler bands. We also have a dome which is separately applied, and we have a chimney which I think has a superheater or something just behind it. We also have some handrails dotted around the place too. As we do an underneath look at the locomotive now, the cylinders do have holes for the drain cocks which are in the detail bag. We also have some holes for the brake rigging as well, and there's some brake shoes there moulded on. We do have 3 or 4 screws to take off the base plate. I'm not sure if it's hardwired or just contact. I've got a feeling with Hornby being the way they are, contact. We also have pickups on the 6 driving wheels on the locomotive. Just a copper strip, it's there. Like I said before, all the wheels are metal. There's probably a few underframe details that I've missed. Mine does have a glue mark, not a bad thing. Underneath, you're not going to see when it's running, but I just thought to point it out, it does have a glue mark. And we also have some steps along the cab too. And finally, we come to the loco and tender connection. The loco and tender connection is the reliable Hornby plug going across with a metal strip with a screw in either side, which does the job for me. It's much more safer than some other manufacturers. The plug is just before the start of the tender wheels, which is better than some. We also have some holes on the tender for some brake rigging. We also have a scoop, water scoop as well. And then we have a couple of screws to take off the base plate. I'm guessing there's a speaker in there or something like that. Like I said before, the wheels are metal, and at least 4 of them, 4 sets of wheels do pick up. I'm not sure about the middle ones, but it's a copper strip yet again, and it does the job. Like I said, the actual stuff and all that is moulded. We do have a coupler at the end, and we have the sprung buffers and some steps dotted around. So yeah guys, that's it on the tracks. Next it will be the usual points test and second radius. Hornby do say it can do second radius. So let's find out, shall we? So here goes. A little bit fast there. What's that? 35? A little bit fast, but It's not too bad. So it managed that pretty well, got to be honest with you, a little bit fast over points, but it can do it slower, just not on camera for some silly reason. So next up will be the slow speed test, and I shall find it a train to pull, and I'll see you at the end. 30's better than the points. Points of 35. Does look nice in the sun. So yeah guys, that was the end of the running session. Before I give you my opinion, I'll tell you what it ran with, which was some coaches, a random mixture of coaches, including the Winston Churchill funeral baggage car, as well as some Hornby Harry Potter coaches too. And then we also had a mixture of freight, just a random mixture of all sorts. The box does say it's a 4MT in the BR things. Thinking LNER it was a express passenger locomotive or something like that. Before I give you my opinion, I just want to point out one thing. There was a quality control issue with mine. The glass in the windows, or the glazing bar, fell out on one side. I tried poking it in, it just keeps falling out, but it's not a big thing. You can't really see it unless you look really close. But yeah, I just thought I'd tell you about that. The price I paid for this, I paid £90 from Kernow Model Centre. And I checked on Hornby's website before I recorded, and the new price for this, even though it's out of stock, is £194 or £195. When I looked before Christmas, because it's like the 3rd of January now, something like that, they said it was £135. So at some point between Christmas and New Year and what's coming out with the 2022 stock announcement, Hornby's prices have gone up a lot just be wary. So £90 is a fantastic bargain. Yes, it's Leicester City for me. I'm a Derby County fan, but can't grumble at £90. You also had another one at £85 with the Great Eastern Tender, I believe, instead of the one we've got on this locomotive. Like I said, if you're into your LNER stuff or 4MT stuffs, yeah, they're worth the money if you can get it at a decent price. Personally, I wouldn't pay nearly £200 for this locomotive. It's worth probably, what, 130, 140 max. That's my opinion, but I wouldn't pay £200. Shop around, see what you can get if you really want one, or just wait for one to pop on eBay really cheap. But mine was a lovely runner, looks the part, and it's a Gresley locomotive that I don't have. I did have 2 tender drive ones about 7 years ago. I had Derby County and Leeds United, but because of the tender drive, I got rid of them. And I said one day I will replace it with a modern one, and Leicester City it is for £90. So that's my opinion. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Please take care. Bye.